So today we are going to make a light system so it will flicker. So I'm in my horror game tutorial project, so let's go into G-Core, go to blueprints and create a folder called core. So in the core we will have all the parents, all the actors. So if you go into it, we're going to create a blueprint class of an actor called BP use. Right click, create a child of it called BP spotlight. So today we're just gonna mess with the spotlight. Now drag it out to the blueprints, create a new folder called light. Create a new folder called light, drag in the spotlight. Now let's create another one called structure. So in the core we are going to create another blueprint class. If you go to blueprints, there should be blueprint function library. Open that up and just call it event functions. Right here, later on when we mess with overlap events and like other events, all the functionality will go in here. So basically it's a library of functions. That's all. So we are going to create set spotlight just like that. For now, just leave it as it is. Let's go to structure and create a blueprint structure called st spotlight settings. So in here, if you actually go to a quick add, go to lights spotlight, you can see there are different settings like intensity units, the radius, inner cone angles, and all that kind of bullshit. So some of them we are just gonna basically add to here so we can actually like change it and stuff. So the first one will obviously be the intensity. Then we are going to add the light color, inner cone angle, outer cone angle. Of course you can add more variables if you want to. So this is just for me. If you want to add like some specific ones, of course can. I think I wrote it incorrectly, I think. Yeah, okay. Then we need source. Yeah, source radius. Let's add more. Source length. These variables are what I'm going to use the most, and that will be about it. Of course you can add IAC texture as well if you have it. So intensity will be a float, light color will be color, if I'm correct, linear color, linear color, so check that. Inner cone, float, outer as well, radius, yep, this one, yep. So these will be floats, except cast shadow, that's gonna be a boolean, and the texture will be a texture light profile. Yeah. So these are all variables that I'm gonna use, I'm gonna change, and all that kind of stuff. You can save that. Now you can go into our light spotlight and add some components like static mesh. So for example, if you have a lamp, you can add a lamp. So I'm gonna call it spotlight, and let's add another one that's gonna be lights, a spotlight. Let's call this light. So let's try to rotate it. I'm just gonna put it out. So if I rotate it minus 90 degrees, this one also default, just like that. Now let's drag it in back to the spotlight. Now let's add the variable called the light settings. And that should be the ST light settings that we just created. ST spotlight settings, just like that. And it's gonna go into a category of light settings, just like that. Now we are going to go back to event functions that we created, the function library. Two inputs of spotlight component. Okay, just saved, of course, CP. And the second one will be the spotlight settings. So for the first one, just search for spotlight component, this one. Second one will be the ST spotlight settings. Now if you break the settings, just break them, you'll gain all the variables that we just created. Now from the spotlight component, you're going to basically get every single one of these. So from the spotlight, we're gonna set intensity, plug that in, and so you're gonna do it for every single one of them, because we want to actually set the intensity, the light color, the inner cone, so we can actually customize it and so on. So now let's get the light color, set light color, sorry. So I'm just gonna speed it up so you don't get bored. So yep. So it should look like this. So you set everything and it looks pretty and stuff, hopefully. Wait. So it should look something like this. So just compile and save it, and it should work. So if you go to spotlight, go to construction script, delete this parent, we don't really need that. Take the light, right, and set visibility. And how we are going to set it is actually promote this into a variable called on/off, and plug that into the light settings, of course. So if it's on, then it's gonna be visible. If it's off, it's not, you know. Now from this, from execute set spotlight that we just created, and plug in the light as spotlight CP, and the settings, plug in the light settings, just like that. So what it basically going to do, when we drag out the spotlight, right now it doesn't show you anything, because you have to go to light settings, set the intensity like default intensity, like 100 for example, set the alpha to 1, choose whatever color you want, inner cone like 20, outer 45, radius like 400-ish, cast shadow, and that's pretty much it. So just set default values. Now you will be able to see it. And I'm just gonna for now delete the light system. Right here you can see we have a folder lights, and basically I'm just gonna delete it for now. So you can see it doesn't really show anything. If you go to, I cannot see the light settings because we have to put all of them to instance editable. So check instance editable box for the on and off, and for the light settings. So now we can actually edit them. So if we press on, it should be technically on. Yeah, you can see if we bring the intensity to 1000, you can see it's actually on, and you can see the light. So if we play, so you can see we have basic light just shining. So we made all of this so we can actually customize the light, do whatever we want easily and efficiently. So you can see you can customize whatever we want. So that's the easiest part. Now we're gonna go into flickering. So in the big event graph, let's have a custom event. That is not a custom event. Custom event called flicker. Now let's add another one called unflicker. You don't really need the unflicker, but if you, for example, doing some sort of different code stuff and you want it to stop flickering, you can use this. I'm gonna have a variable called flickering. It's going to be a boolean and instance editable, and plug that into the light settings. Now we are going to set flickering to true and for the unflickering to false. Before we flicker, we're gonna check if it's actually on. So if it's true, on and off is true, then it's going to flicker. Now we are going to have a basic timeline. So timeline called flickering timeline. I know some people in the tutorials do just a light material, so they just go and basically create light function material. I think that's probably the most easiest way, but I think the timeline is more customizable, so and more random, I guess. So double click on the timeline, add a track called add float, and call this for animation. The length will be 1, and we are going to add a keyframe at time 0 and value 1, and we're gonna add another keyframe at 1 and 1, and click these zooms to fit as well, just this one vertically. Now if you zoom out a bit, you can see yeah, so you can see this is at the start and this is at the end. By holding shift and pressing, you can create keyframes, as you can see. What we are going to do, we are going to basically create zigzag keyframes. So by the way, don't pass value 2 and 0, so it, I guess, gives you a cool flickering effect. So the first keyframe, we're just gonna go right below 2 and right where it's 0, and we're just gonna basically do zigzags like this. This will give the flickering effect, I guess you could say. You don't have to copy me or anything, it's completely random and it will work. And remember to set it in loop, so click this button, and that's about it. So it will have a random flickering effect, I guess. So going back to event graph, we have the animation. We're going to multiply that by the light settings. So get the light settings and break it and plug in the intensity. So we're just gonna multiply the intensity, the current intensity with the animation intensity, I guess. And we are going to get the light, set intensity. When it updates, it's going to set it to this new one, just like that. And on flickering, we're just gonna basically stop, and that's about it. Or you can do start new time, but that's about it. So now begin play and just do flicker. Now in the flicker, no, in the construct script, there should be, if we just search for flicker timeline that we just created, there should be get flicker timeline. Basically that's the timeline, this one, and we are going to do set play rate. Bam. Now promote this into a variable called flicker speed in seconds. And of course instance editable, and that will be about it. So now what we can do, there should be flicker. I think we didn't put that into the light settings, so put the flickering speed in the light settings and set it to 2. So if we play, you can see it actually flickers, and it's completely random. And if we, for example, set the speed to 1, so you can see it flickers like that. It's quite up to you, your timeline, how random you want it, how high you want it. You can set it to 0.3. So that's how you create a flickering effect and a light system in your project. It's really simple, not really advanced, and you can customize it however you want it in here. So you can add a different color, you can make it bigger, and you can see the flicker changes as well.